Hello and welcome to the Stamp Camp. I'm Glenda Calkins, your independent Stampin' Up demonstrator. This week's question of the week is, when coloring in your images, where should you put the darker and the lighter colors? Now, this was brought to me by Maria Tomlin. She asked the question. That's something new I'm doing on my blog. Ask me a question and I will try my best to answer it and show you different techniques for your question, as well as going live on Thursday nights to show you exactly how it is done. Now, I must confess, I am not a watercolorist. This is one of the harder questions for me because watercolor is not my forte, but I'm going to give it my best shot. Ask me whatever you want. I'm going to try my best to answer it and give you the tips and techniques that I use. But again, I am not a professional watercolorer by any means. So let's change the camera and get started. There we go. All right, so we are going to start out with, we are going to start out with the Apple Harvest stamp set. And back when it was under the Perfect Promotions, it had coordinating dies that you could get with it. But you don't necessarily need the dies for the card that I'm going to show you. You could hand cut it out. I did use the die, but if you don't have the dies, you can hand cut it. We are going to be using the 100 fluid watercolor paper from Stampin' Up for this first technique. So this is, let's see, giving you the details. You get 10 sheets in the pack, and they are 5 by 7 inches. It's a very thick, nice watercolor paper. When you're using water, you're going to want to use the Stays On ink so that your images do not bleed. So we're going to stamp our image using the Stays On ink. We are going to be using the water painter, which I have water in there. And then we're going to be using the re-inkers. So we're going to be watercoloring with the re-inkers. And I have Soft Suede, Granny Apple Green, Daffodil Delight, Rio Red, and then Cherry Cobbler. Okay, so I've already went ahead and stamped my apple image from the stamp set onto the watercolor paper. Now I'm going to take my water painter that has water in it. I'm going to put my colors on my block here. This is my color palette. So first I'm going to put a little dab of Real Red. I'm going to put a dab of the Cherry Cobbler. Whoops. I'm going to put a dab of the Daffodil Delight. I'm trying to put stuff out of the way as I use it so I can free up some space. This is Soft Suede. And then I have the Granny Apple Green. So we're putting that right there. Now the first thing you're going to want to do is take your painter. You can squish water out, but I can also pick up a little bit more. And I'm first going to color over the top where I'm going to put ink in a minute with the water. This is going to help that ink to kind of bleed and blend out. So the more water that you get on your image, your stamped image, the quicker it will color in and it will just kind of work that color around. So I'm going to start here with the Real Red. Have a paper towel to dab off, and I'm just going to come in here and fill in with this Real Red. Now I could have gotten my apple, there we go, I was going to say a little wetter. See how that bleeds out? I'm going to get my glasses on here. Much better, I can see. So I try to get right as close to the edge with my water painter. I'm going to actually leave that white spot there, right there. And I'm just going to get as close to the leaf. I love these pens. They have a nice fine tip to let you get in these areas. And every time you do this, it is going to look different. It's just how much water you add in the beginning, how many layers you put on. Let go. And then I'm going to clean my brush off. I got a lot of red in there. That looks pretty. Oh, I'm still running pink. Okay, now I'm going to come into these leaves. I'm going to let that red just sit there a minute. I'm going to come in and I'm going to wet my leaves. Oops. All right, so I'm going to take my paper towel and I'm going to dab that out of there. And then I'm going to pick up this green. But before I do that, I want to come in with yellow. Forgot. I'm going to put a little bit of that yellow. You can water it down so it's not so right down the center of my leaves. I think the more colors you add, the more realistic your finished watercoloring will be. So I'm going to just come in now with that green. And I'll pick up some of that wasn't quite watered down to come in with a little bit darker. And I'm going to leave that light like that. I like that, that look. Same with this one, just come in a little bit. And I'll try to get a little bit of the darker green. But because I have this lighter here, or that spot, I'm going to come in with the yellow right there. And I'm going to just kind of come around. And then I'm going to pick up that cherry cobbler, and I'm going to really water that down because I don't want it too dark. And the artists kind of help you out where to come in with your dark shading, because they will make those lines where you want a little bit darker. And I'll come across the bottom and just kind of color in. That's a little dark. Where I want that little darker color to come in. And just kind of work it up. I'll do little streaks, like brush marks, and then I'll come in and kind of just fan that out. This really looks like a red delicious. Now I'm going to come in with that soft suede, and we'll just color in the stem. Like so. I'm going to take a little bit of green and come right here. I got a little bit of bleeding into my green there, but that's pretty good. I think I'm going to lighten this area up just a bit by just putting the water on. But that's kind of how I add, where to add the darker, where to add the lighter. Now you're going to have to let that heat set dry. So I've already got one that is dry and die cut out. Like I said, you can hand cut it, you can die cut it, but see I left a little bit lighter there, but this is going to dry much lighter than what it looks now. So let me clean up my mess here. Take that water out of my way. So my card base on this one is going to be basic black, and that's 4 1/4 by 11. Now you can download the project sheet under the video under show more. I'll have a direct link to my blog where you can download that project sheet. So this card is going to open like this. I have a piece of that red check from the Cottage Gingham Designer Series paper. We're going to go ahead and attach that to our card front. Then I cut a strip of black, and I use the images from the stamp set. I have this rickrack and then the thanks for your kindness that I embossed on here. So I'm going to just add that to my card front. So right across like so. Whoops. I'm going to take my apple and we're going to pop that up on the card front. And I want one of the tiny ones for... The beauty of watercoloring is it will look differently every time. If you don't like it once it dries, add some more color in. You can go back and add more and more, especially if you're using the watercolor paper that will absorb a lot. And then I have just a bow with the white twine. I'm going to cut these down a little bit, give a little haircut there. Come in with my glue dots. Where is my U-pick tool? Right here. Come in with my glue dot, and I'm going to put that right there. And then we'll come in with some pearls. And we'll add those kind of around here like so. Isn't that cute? Look at that apple. Makes me want an apple. So cute. But that is watercoloring with the watercolor painter or watercolor paper and then your re-inkers. So the next one that I'm going to be doing, I'm going to use just the thick basic white cardstock. And let me get this stuff in here. The stamp set that I'm using is called the Blessings of Home. We're going to take this image right here. It does have coordinating die, which I did use on my card. So we're going to, on basic white, thick, we're going to stamp and emboss our image. And I stamped it with the Versamark, put the black embossing powder on, and then heat set that. So that's how that was done. Now we're going to use our ink pads. So we're going to use Coastal Cabana, Old Olive, Granny Apple Green, Daffodil Delight, and Flirty Flamingo. Now what we're going to do I'm going to start with the Granny Apple Green and the Green Old Olive. And I just have my clear blocks. So I'm just going to smush my clear blocks, picking up that ink from the ink pad and using my blocks as my color palette. So this is the Granny Apple Green, and that's the Old Olive. All right, so I'm going to do that with all my colors. So I have yellow, Daffodil Delight. And then I have my Flirty Flamingo. And the Coastal Cabana. So now I have all my ink palettes. So I'm going to start with the green, and I'm going to use my water painter again. And I'm going to just push water onto my block and make a nice pool of that watercolor, of the ink. And it should be pretty light. And I'm just going to come into all my leaves here with that lighter, wet Granny Apple. Now I like this technique because the embossing kind of helps to keep you right in so it doesn't pool out. It stays in the lines. Now you could do this with the blends as well, but I kind of like it better with the water brush because I can control the amount of water. And you can see I'm just lightly going over all the leaf images. I think that might be it for the leaves. Now I'm going to come in, I'm going to do the same thing. We'll let that, I got a little muddy there. We'll use a different part of the block. I got a little green left. I'm just pinching the water that's in the barrel out to clean that up. And then I'm going to come in with the Flirty Flamingo and just color in the flower petals. You can tell I'm just kind of smearing the color around. Now, because I'm on camera, I'm trying to do it a little quicker. You can take your time when you're doing it, but I'm just, so you get the idea. I'm filling these all in with the Flirty Flamingo. And I'll come back. I'm going to do this big one. So I'm pretty much using, whoops, that one a little dark. That's all right. One ink color, but we're going to get different colors just from that one ink. So I'm going to let that dry up a little bit. Now I'll come in with the yellow and fill in my flower centers. And let's see, these kind of got black, so they're hard to see. A little heavy-handed on my embossing powder. All right, so now I'm going to come back in. Well, I'll do the Coastal Cabana a minute. And I'm just laying the color on the petals. All right, so now I'm going to come in with a little bit darker green there. And kind of just wherever they have that shadow, which is embossed, I'm just going to come in with a little bit of that. Just to add a little bit more color to those leaves. Blend that out. Okay, now I'm going to come back in with the lighter and I'm going to just try to blend that so I'm not so streaky. Like so. I'm going to leave that. I'm going to come back to my Flirty Flamingo and I'm going to not water it down so much, but I'm going to pick it up so it's darker. And I'm going to fill in where they show dark. I'm going to just come in. If you want to come over those lines, and I like to use little strokes. Same here. Those outside petals, sometimes a little bit darker on those. Same with this one here. Pick up that ink without so much water in it off the black, and you'll get that nice darker tone. All right, now I'm gonna just clean that out. I'm gonna blend that just a little bit more with the water, just so I get a little bit more water look and not such streaks. Watercoloring, you can do a lot just by adding more different colors, playing with your water. Kind of creating your own paint palette. And it's kind of hard to see the variations, but I'm going to do the same with the blue. We're going to come in, add some of that direct, the darker. It's not mixed with a lot of water. Kind of right around the center, bring that blue, that deep blue color. But there, you can layer it on as much as you like. Use the artists where they do a lot of shading to put your darker colors. And then once it's dry, you're going to die cut it out. So that it's dried, die cut out. So I'm going to wipe my blocks here. But that, I like to use my blocks as my color palette. I can mix and blend right on my clear blocks. right, that will be set aside to dry. My card base is the Flirty Flamingo. Then I have a piece of black. And again, you can download the project sheet from my blog. The link will be under the video under Show More. And that will have all the dimensions to the cardstock and all the supplies. Then I took a piece of regular basic white and I ran it through my cut and emboss machine inside the embossing folder. Now because it is embossed, I will use the liquid glue to attach it to my card front. Because of that texture, I like to use the liquid glue. It will not rip. Plus I have a little wiggle room if I need to move it around once I have it on my card, just like that. We're going to pop this up. So I'm going to bring in my dimensionals. And put a little one right here in the point. There we go. That is going to be on the card like so. Then I took a piece of black and used the Stylish Shapes dies and I heat embossed Happy Birthday using Versamark and white embossing powder. On this side here we're going to put a dimensional and then adhesive, and we're going to just put that across here like so. Make sure that looks straight. Then I'm going to come in with these gorgeous iridescent rhinestones. And they are lots of different sizes and shapes, but I just think they are so pretty. And we'll just put a few of these on the card. Maybe I'll put a smaller one there. Right there on the thing. And I'll put one over here. So there you have it. This one's dried a little bit more than that one, but there's your watercoloring with the thick basic white cardstock and the ink pads with your clear blocks. So there's that one. The next card we are going to create, we're going to use the blends. So we're going to color with the blends. We are going to be using the Cottage Rose stamp set. It does have, no it doesn't. Well, I don't know if it does or not. It might have dies. I didn't use them. I would have to look. But it's the Cottage Rose stamp set. We're going to use this image right here. And I also brought in the All That dies for my label that I'm going to put for the sentiment. So the paper that we're using for this is thick white again. Whoops. All right, and this time, since we're using the Stampin' Blends, you're going to stamp it with the Memento ink. So with the blends, you need to use the Memento ink pad. So I've run ahead and I stamped that on my card base there. We're going to be using the Petal Pink Dark, Petal Pink Light, the Dark Papaya, the Daffodil Light Dark, the Granny Apple Green, and then the Soft Suede. Yes. So I'm going to start with my leaves, And I'm just going to take the Daffodil Delight and I'm going to kind of color in right down the center of my leaves, like so. And then I'm going to take the lighter Granny Apple Green and I'm going to come around the outside edge. And for video's sake, I'm doing this rather quickly. And then I'm going to come in with the darker and kind of go up those lines that they show. Again, the artist has got some lines in there, and if you want to blend those out, just come in with a lighter. You will kind of cover up that yellow a bit, but you can still leave it so you can see some of that yellow coming through. Again, layering on those colors gives it more natural or realistic look. So I'm going to blend. I'm going to switch and go to the finer point here. Come in with the dark. Kind of blend that in. A lot of times we'll just use little strokes, almost like you're drawing. And kind of blend it out. See, I leave a little bit of that yellow still showing there so that you can see that, but leaves are all different colors, so don't be afraid to mix and match your blends. And then I'm going to come in with the suede for those branches. I'm going to use the yellow on these little flower buds or whatever these are. I'm going to come in with the lighter yellow, and then we'll come in a little bit darker around the outside of that. I'm going to come in with the soft suede down the bottom here. We'll come in with a little bit of darker. Now we'll come in with the light petal pink, and we're going to do those leaves. Now, some people will do one leaf at a time and multi-layer the colors on. Totally fine. I mean, the choice is yours how you want to do it. I lightly go with the lightest color over the whole image. And the reason I'm trying to stay in the lines is because I'm not going to die cut this out. This is going to be my card front. So I have my lighter, then I'm going to come in with the darker and like go where the artist has all their little lines. And if you want to use the brush fine tip, go ahead. But that fine tip lets you do those little straight squiggles. Kind of brush strokes. So you're kind of following that artist's lines, but you're just quickly putting in those strokes like that. And then I'll kind of blend it all again. Maybe this time come in a little closer to the edge, but you can leave your edges white. kind of fade to your tips being lighter than the rest of your flower. Like I said, this is how I do it. I am by no means a watercolorist. This is not my forte, but I think I can come off with a pretty good looking stamped colored image when I'm done. And then I'm going to take that papaya and we're going to come in yet again on those lines. And then usually where the petals overlap like that is where you're going to get your darker. See how the artist puts all those lines right behind? It gives it the depth to those petals. And I could sit here playing all day, but for the sake of time, I'm going to call that good. Here's my finished dried. Blends don't need a whole lot of drying time, but they do bleed through the back side, so you're going to want to make sure that you have a layer. So my card base on this is the soft suede, and this is 5.5 by 8.5, scored at 4 1/4. I'm going to fold that in half, just like that. I have a base of that petal pink. We're going to put that on the card front. We're going to take our stamped and blended image and put that on the card front. Now you can see I took the die from the it's this one right here, all that dies, and I stamped it with the stamp from the Cottage Rose, it's the Best Wishes, using the soft suede, and then I die cut it again in the petal pink. So how did I get that little lip of petal pink when it's the same die? You will notice, I think you can notice, see that ridge that gets left when you die cut it? I took my scissors and I cut that ridge off. So that's how that white is just a little bit smaller than the petal pink one, is because I cut off that ridge with my scissors. Quick and easy way of doing it. That particular die works, that technique works sweet with that die, because I don't know why, but that ridge gets pretty deep into your cardstock. So you have an easy way to see where to cut it. We're going to place that up there, since I'm not looking right over the top. There we go. That looks pretty good. Now we're going to just come in with our pearls again. Might be a pearl short. Where's these are the iridescent pearls. I'll use my bigger pearls. And I'm going to put a pearl here, and I'm going to put a pearl there, and I'm going to put one up here, and one right there, and then we'll put a couple smaller ones on the sentiment. Just like that. So there you have it. Those are your Memento ink pad, and your blends. And that's just your basic, thick, basic white cardstock. Okay, the final card. And I'm going to use this image here from the Fresh Cut Flowers stamp set. We are going to stamp that onto the shimmer white. So this is shimmer white cardstock, Going to stamp your image, which I have it on here, shimmer white, and we're going to use our pencils to color that in and do the watercoloring. So I have my blender pen. We're going to use the blender pen with our watercolor brushes or pencils. You can use the water painter, but I just wanted to show you a different medium. So we're going to be using the blend and your watercolor pencils. So I got a couple different greens here. I got the Granny Apple green and the Garden green. I have two sets. There are two sets of watercolor pencils in the catalog. So I have both. I took some colors from both of the sets. So I'm going to start first with the Granny Apple green, and I'm just going to color in the leaves like so. Nothing. You can do little circles, however you want to lay your color down. It really doesn't matter. But you're just going to color in your image. So I'm going to just color this all in. Again, I'm just kind of quickly layering that color in there. The pencils they do spread out, so you don't have to be too concerned about getting right to the edges. With the blender pen, it does work nicely. Then you can come in with the Garden green and you can add your detail, your color in right over the top right now if you want, because it will blend right where you want it to be. And I'm just following that artist's lines again on my leaves. All right, so now we're going to come in with the blend pen and we're just going to blend that color. Works beautifully. And on the shimmer white paper, it leaves behind a little shimmer. Very pretty. It'd be like you used Wink of Stella over your image. You can see how quickly that blends together. Smooths out those lines. And you can always come back in with more colors to deepen it or add more color if you think it needs more darker color here or there. Clean your blender pen off just by rubbing it on your cardstock. Then I'm going to come in with the Flirty Flamingo, and I'm just going to scribble the color onto the flower petals. I'll just do one for time's sake. And then I'm going to come in with the Daffodil Delight. Just kind of go right there in the middle. I did do these little flowers with the Daffodil Delight as well. That probably should be green, but I did it in yellow. Then I'm going to add just little streaks of the real red around. Now I'll blend that. And then I'll come in and kind of work that center like so. And then I'll come back in with that red and we'll come down from the top, like little color blending in there. like I said, I just do kind of like little lines, follow the artist's lines. Take that blender pen and blend that color down into your petals. Isn't that pretty? And once it dries, if you want to add more colors in there, you can go ahead and add some more in there. But for the sake of time, I colored the other flowers exactly the same. Clean your blender pen off in between those colors. So once I had it all colored, I took my contour dies, scallop contour dies, and I just scalloped the edge. My card base is basic black, 4 1/4 by 11, scored at 5 1/2. All right, this is going to be stuck down right on this card front. Like so. I took the happy birthday sentiment from the peaceful moments and die cut it out with the rectangles, the stitch rectangles. I'm going to have a piece of black cardstock that's just cut a little bit bigger than that stitched rectangle. And I'm going to just attach it to the corner here, like so. I'm going to bring in a glue dot. And in this corner right here, we're going to put one of our gorgeous little gingham bows, like so. Then I'm going to bring in the black matte dots. Let's put like so. And there you have it. Watercoloring with your watercolor pencils and your blender pen. That's those right there. Kind of hard to see them. Gorgeous. This is your Stampin' Blends, and that uses the Memento ink pad. This is your ink on your clear blocks using the water painter, and that is embossing, so emboss. And then this one is the watercolor paper using the re-anchors on your clear blocks with the watercolor brush, wet water painter. So those are all your watercoloring techniques. Like I said, I'm no pro, but I think they turned out pretty nice. It is all following the artist's details. That's where I put my dark, kind of play with your colored images, all the different mediums and different colors. If you need any of the supplies, please visit my online store. You will find the link under the video. Under Show More, you will see my link to my store, as well as the link to the blog post that will have the downloadable project sheet for all the dimensions and products that I used. I do appreciate any and all orders. That is it for this week. That is answering the question, when coloring in images, where should you color in, the lighter or the darker? And then I added the different coloring mediums that Stampin' Up sells. So that is it for today. Thanks for stopping by.